1st, 2023, and it's now 4 p.m. And we will call the Detention Center Ad Hoc Committee to order. Ms. Carrillo, can you please take the roll?
Hugh?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
English?
Present.
We have a quorum.
We'll now move down to number 2, approval of minutes, November 17, 2022.
So move, Madam Chair.
I will second. Is there any discussion, any changes?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Carrillo, can you take?
Hugh?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Move to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections?
So move, Madam Chair.
Mr. Brown?
No changes.
Or a second?
Second.
Ms. Carrillo, can you call for the vote, please?
Hugh?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Move to item 4, election of the chair. Yes, sir.
Recognized. At this time, I would move to nominate Councilman Derek Pugh as chair, for the Detention Center Ad Hoc Committee.
Second.
All right.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Carrillo, can you call for the vote?
Hugh?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. And with that, I will turn the rest of the agenda over to Councilman Pugh.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, I just want to thank my colleagues for believing in me to lead this committee. This is a hot topic in our community, and we want to make sure that we are delivering the information that it needs, the way it needs to be delivered for our constituents and just the community as a whole. So again, I want to just thank you for allowing me to lead this committee. With that being said, we move on to item number 5 on the agenda. It's a discussion item, which is the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center update. Mr. Brown, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I want to provide you some information here today in the form of an update. This information will also be made available online, but for those who are able to look at it, it's going to be on your screen. I'm going to present part of this information, and then I'm going to allow the interim director to present the rest of the information. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with a brief recap. Previously, we had a conversation about opportunities for improvements at the detention center. We dealt with staffing information. We provided facility updates. We looked at the individual vendors that are also serving at the facility alongside our staff. We looked at our telecommunication provider and the relative needs related to technology. We talked specifically about detainee and officer safety. And then we looked at opportunities for improvements in the structure. I want to remind everybody that we did improve pay at the facility, and we still had hiring initiatives that are currently ongoing. So just in case there's anyone that is listening, we are still hiring detention officers. We still do have that need. While our numbers have improved, they can be better than they are. Just a quick reminder for those who may have missed it the first time, the county's medical provider is Advanced Correctional Healthcare. They are a twofold provider. They provide for both medical and mental health services for us at the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center. So that was a change prior to. So I just wanted to make sure that anyone who missed that before, they are aware of that now. Summit Food Service is currently our provider. They have been for quite some time. You may have recalled us mentioning a conversation about being audited by DHEC. And our last audit was produced and we were found to be in a satisfactory grade. But even as a part of that process, we talked about the need for making improvements to the kitchen facility. Later on, you will see some of those improvements that have been made. While the facility is not at this time complete, it is substantially complete, just waiting on equipment. We talked about our telecommunication provider. This was a discussion that we talked about as it relates to our jail management software. At one point in time, we were looking at our telecommunications provider to provide us a resource through our last contract. But with the changes that were made, we need to actually still acquire a separate jail management software. Our current telecommunication provider is ViaPath. So again, for anyone who missed that information, This provider allows us to do remote connections between attorneys and their clients. They actually also provide access to the law library as other recreation services through the pads that they provide. We did talk about some technology needs and initiatives. We do currently have a body scanner at the facility that we're operating. We still also need to move forward with the acquisition of software to store our policies and procedures for the staff there. And specifically, we're talking about updating our camera system. That overall project is going to be tied to some of the visitation center improvements as well as some of the other internal improvements. So cameras have to be connected to the entire system. So we're not going to piecemeal that. Want to talk about just briefly here a few of the other structure enhancements. We talked about the service flaps that were added to some of the doors to allow access to detainees without having to open up the actual unit itself. We also talked about the remodeling initiatives that we currently have going on with two particular units, one that is closed down, the special housing unit, and the other one that is Yankee. So both of those are projects that are currently underway. Just briefly here, we also talked about the staff performing more security shakedowns. And you may have seen through some of our efforts that provided contraband that detainees should not have, but it also provided an opportunity for individuals who are entering to the facility who may have been detention officers who are not doing the right things. So whether you are a detainee or you're a detention officer, if you're not doing the right things, then steps will be taken to remediate that issue. And unfortunately, we hired some individuals who chose to make poor decisions, and we had to both move on from them and then also pursue legal recourse through law enforcement. So the question becomes, well, where are we now? So briefly, I'm going to talk about three areas. The three areas are going to be the detention center director position, the compliance director position, and then security upgrades. And as a part of that, I'll show a video, which is about 5 minutes. Then after that, I'll take any questions that you may have from me based off what I have covered. And then I would turn it over to Interim Director Harvey. So the first thing I want to point out is right now we are actively hiring for a detention center director. So if there's anyone listening to this information right now who has gone on the county's website and is interested in applying, you will simply need to go to the careers portal. And when you search by location and go to Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center, with the software that we have, it doesn't pop up at the very top. But if you scroll down, the position is there. It is the way that it filters based off what has been most recently posted. So we don't really have another mechanism of moving that to the top. But that position is currently open. And I want to take a few moments, and it is on your screen for those of you who are online and those of you who are here in the chambers. And it look at what are the things that we are requiring of this position. And I won't go into all the details. This is just a brief summary. But for anyone who is interested in this position, I'm hoping that we can bring somebody in that has 10 years of progressive management experience within a correctional or detention facility, someone who has a background in criminal justice or a law enforcement related field. Certainly would be good if it is someone who has operated as a jail administrator or an assistant jail administrator or detention administrator. That would be great. Also, this person will have general oversight over the entire Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center operation. And so this individual will be the person that's the day-to-day, if you will, boots on the ground authority at the facility that makes sure that operations are going the way that they should in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws. This position will report directly to the county administrator. And so that would be the reporting chain for this particular position. As I mentioned in the general summary, if someone has a graduate degree, that is preferable. But again, the idea is a combination of education and experience is really what we're looking for. The next position, which is slightly different, is the detention center compliance director. This person is going to be specifically responsible for mitigating risk through operational issues at the facility. So their job is to make sure that any compliance standards, whether those are with our vendors or whether those are with the way we operate the facility, their job is to make sure that not only is staff trained, but that these things are being implemented, again, in accordance with all local, state, and federal laws. So while the detention center director has an overall job, which includes a level of compliance, this person's job is to ensure. So as the county administrator, my job is to facilitate and provide resources so that the detention center director can make sure the jail is operating appropriately. The compliance director's job is to make sure that the detention center director doesn't have to focus on whether or not everybody's in compliance. Their job is to focus on that and to provide that resource to the detention center director. This position will also report to the county administrator, removing any concern that the director could have influence over his or her job based off whether or not they're sharing information with the county administrator or the county in general. So that way we have a checks and balances internal to the county, in addition to any external providers that we seek to bring on as well. This position, as stated here, is going to deal with reducing, mitigating, and managing all risk factors associated with operating and maintaining a detention facility. And then specifically, this position is going to oversee, again, not only just what we do as detention center personnel there, but anybody that's operating in the facility. So we have a food provider, we have mental and medical services providers, we have people that come in and out of there that do work. So all of those types of things, this person's job is to make sure that we are mitigating any exposure that we have to contraband being, for example, being introduced into the system, policies not being followed, people not maintaining their necessary training responsibilities, so that at the end of the day, there are 3-level executives that I want to have at the facility. You're going to have the detention center director, you're going to have the compliance director, and then you're going to have the assistant director. So why do you say that, Administrator Brown? So 24/7, 365, there should always be a jail executive at the facility. There should never be a time in the future, once these positions are filled, where we do not have a jail executive present on site at the facility. So that coverage would be something that we haven't had. I think that will help mitigate a lot of concerns when decisions need to be made at the facility in a timely fashion. And so that's why I'm looking to address those 2 positions. And I'm looking to hopefully have those, if folks go ahead and apply. I know I've received several applications already. I plan to provide those names at the next council meeting for any applicants that I've received related to both of these positions. And then as soon as we get those all vetted, interviewed, and ultimately a decision is made, we'll also provide that again to both the committee and then the full council as a part of that process. So one more thing before I ask for questions from this particular body. The next thing I want to talk about is security upgrades. One of the things that you've heard reported, and there's been a question about, is whether or not individuals are able to remain in their units or their cells behind a locked environment. We talked about in the past why there have been some instances where these older cells have allowed individuals to compromise them, and therefore the need to upgrade to reduce that opportunity going forward. This is a product that I'm going to show you now that you're going to get. I'm waiting for some feedback from one more area, but you will get this information hopefully by the next council meeting in your packet with all the full details of this particular product that I'm moving forward with, that's going to alleviate the challenge of compromising the current locks that we have in our detention facility. It's called the Willow Wedge. You may have seen it before, but what I'm going to do is it's a 5-minute video, and I think it's going to communicate to you why this is important in the fight for making sure that we have secure detention facilities. And that's what this is going to do for us. So again, in full transparency, we're moving forward with this product, but there's one more piece that we have to bring on that was noted at a recent survey when they came back out to the county. That's going to make sure that when we implement this lock, that the areas of where they're put in, that they all remain secure. So again, we have some older facilities, so we have to upgrade a couple of things. So Just again, 5-minute video, and then I'll take questions after for this and any other items that I've discussed. Excuse the ad, I can't help that.
Thursday, Mr. Brown.
In 2004, the Southern Center for Human Rights filed suit against the Fulton County jail system over unsanitary and dangerous conditions at the jail. Incidents on record include inmates defeating cell locks, repeated inmate-on-inmate violence, and multiple attacks on jail staff. To settle the suit, Fulton County consented to improvements mandated by a federal court order, including the replacement of locks that were being easily opened by inmates.
Over the years, before we even began to investigate the possibility of replacing the locks, we had issues with inmates being able to get out of their cells, popping or bumping the doors sufficiently enough. In some cases, inmates will assault other inmates. Out of their cells and cause trouble for the staff in general from a supervision standpoint.
In 2006, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and the state of Georgia entered into a consent order with the federal to address those security concerns.
The consent order specifically addressed having all doors with locking devices. Always been a challenge, even with a locking device that isn't broken, that it can be easily. The purpose of that device is also defeated.
To comply with the consent order, Colonel Adger and his staff looked for vendors who could provide viable solutions. The Willow Wedge, with its patented tamper-resistant offset design and LED indicator light, was among the products evaluated.
I saw the product. Last 2012, we installed doors in one of our housing units. After the installation was asked me how assured I was that this was going to work. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. If any inmate to pop out of this cell now, away. Guys, it's a commissary item, and I haven't had to pay out on that bed yet.
Its most notorious troublemakers in the renovated cell block to further test the locks. Even they could not get past the patented offset design.
We quickly heard from them, and nothing they could do. The door was shut. I think one of them even said, once that light goes green, that's it. Told other inmates who hadn't seen one of those cells, you're not getting out.
Guards know the cell door is locked and secure, and that has increased the staff's confidence.
Morale is going to increase because high level of assurance go into a zone that's locked down, and those inmates are not going to pop up.
And to approve the funding.
Was compare our current situation and where we wanted to be with other jails in the area that were having the same problem and illustrate what the liability factor is not having a safe and secure environment.
In the final analysis, commissioners agreed that the project was necessary to reduce the county's liability.
If you think saving money not buying these locks is going to be of use to you, wait till you get the lawsuit because an inmate was assaulted because we could not lock them down, keep them safe and secure. That's going to be tens of millions of dollars in and of itself.
The Wedge easily replaces existing swing door locks with no impact on the integrity of the door or frame. The Wedge is ASTM Grade 1 certified, has a built-in door positioning sensor, and features an easily accessible cleanout for removing packed debris from the door strike.
As time went on and we worked further with all the vendors and specifically with Willow, we enhanced the specifications that we were asking for to provide the best security product that we can get. I think that's what we have now.
So I appreciate you indulging me watching that video. We didn't have the physical lock with us today, but I wanted to show you specifically what we were going to be investing in and why. So some of the issues that we have now are individuals, they compromise the locks by jamming it full of items so that the lock is compromised. Some other ways, potentially, if you jam something in between, like you were seeing there, something where you can kind of pry open the locking mechanism. These are all real issues that not only us, but many other detention centers face. So this particular product allows for, as you saw there, a clean out of debris. It allows for it's set back, so you can't really reach anything to get it. And so there's also a device that when anytime it's tampered with, it makes noise, so you know that someone is tampering with it. And then you have a visual cue of whether or not the door is locked or not also, which both from an employee standpoint, we believe makes sense to encourage safety and security and folks having a peace of mind, but then also letting you know if something is malfunctioning. So again, this is something that we are looking to put forth and move forward. Unlike the folks in the video, we know we don't have to wait for a year for anything. This is something that's already moving forward. But again, we wanted to show you the details of the steps when we're talking about what's being improved and how it's being improved and who's doing the improvements, so that you have a fulsome view of what that looks like. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I was going to take any questions about this or anything else I've covered so far.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brown, I have a question, but I will defer to Ms. English. Ms. English, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to just take a moment to thank you. So many times we only get negative reports, but I commend you as well as the staff for continuing to move forward with all the work, with the positive progress, just ensuring the safety of the staff as well as the inmates. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, I just have a few questions. One, how many facilities have you guys talked to about this new product that we're about to embark on at Alvin S. Glenn?
So I'm not sure how many the detention center director has spoken. Have you want to go ahead and answer that question?
Thank you, sir, for the question. Yes, I actually had a forum with 43 jail directors last week. We had a 2-day session, and we talked about this new product that we're about to acquire, and they couldn't believe it. They are amazed about it. I actually sent them the link, and they looked at it themselves, and a lot of jails want this product that we're about to get. Unfortunately, resources is something that they don't have. So, but yes, 43 counties.
Our next question is, how much will the new locks cost us for Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center?
Yes, sir. So I could give you a general number now. What I wanted to do was, I'm waiting on one more document. Once I get that, I believe that we should get that this week. And then I was going to provide that in a packet. But right now, that number is about $2.5 million. So it's going to be, I believe, a little bit more than that because we had some compromised doors in our facility. And in order to make sure when you put something new on something, if it's compromised, then it's no good. So we had to address those areas that won't fit because they're already compromised and they need to be modified or replaced.
And then the next question is, are we going facility wide with this product, or are we going to, I think for me, listening to the video, and I could be wrong, it seems to me that Fulton County, they took one unit, put it in that unit, and then they moved all their high risk detainees, because they're not inmates, to this part of the facility. Is that something that we're looking at, or are we looking at going facility wide with this product?
We're looking to address all of our compromised units.
Right, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brown, I'm not sure if this is a question that can be, I guess, answered in open session like this because it pertains to security personnel, but I'm going to ask it. And if you're not allowed to answer it, I certainly understand. But I think you talked earlier, Alicia mentioned it regarding the number of personnel and not exactly being where we want to be. So my question for you is, what is that number? How far off are we? And what are the challenges to actually reaching that number, at least the challenges that you've experienced in reaching that, I guess, ideal number for the number of personnel at the facility?
Yes, sir. And specifically, the next slide where the director is going to give you a staffing breakdown, but I'm going to answer two of your questions. So the challenge that we are facing, again, and I say this because I think it's important, it's not unique to Richland County. Law enforcement in the state of South Carolina, and I would tell you law enforcement in other jurisdictions in the country are struggling with hiring qualified individuals who are interested in doing that work. Separate and apart from law enforcement on the streets, law enforcement officers on the detainee side is a challenge because they are also detained with the detainees for 12 hours or more a day. That is, again, is not a unique challenge to Richland County. We have not asked for information from other state agencies or the correctional institutions, but my understanding is that that is consistent, that if you were to poll the state of South Carolina as an organization or as the detention centers across the state, you will find that they are not 100% occupied by full-time personnel, that there's a struggle, and that it's really not limited to Richland County. So we've tried to address pay, and I think you're going to see that the numbers that we did, you will see that there's been an increase. But as you all are also aware, there are a lot of other agencies who are now taking those steps if they have not already taken those steps. So that will continue to be an opportunity. So the way we're trying to differentiate ourselves is by the level of service that we provide in an excellent quality facility. So if you can come to Richland County and make a decent living, but more importantly, if you can feel safe and secure and have a place where you're staying in that place and it's a quality place, we feel like that's going to help folks choose to be here with us when they can choose to be someplace else. So I know that's a long answer, but I think it's very important for folks to realize the component pieces of folks working in a detention environment.
Chairman Pugh, Mr. Brown, you feel that the current level of compensation is pretty competitive in comparison to, I guess, our counterparts, whether it's the state, whether it's other detention facilities in the surrounding area?
I think based on the longevity that we built into the pay plan, because we actually have a pay plan for the detention center now, I think it shows you that if you choose to be in a career, you can make a decent salary and provide for yourself and your family through the detention center at Alvin's Glen Detention Center. You may not be able to do it in year one. Year one is, again, the starting salary is $40,000. We do have some bonuses that we have on that for retention and for new hire recruitment. But again, the longer you're with us, the more education you get for yourself, the more certifications you get for yourself, we pay for those things. So yes, sir, Mr. Chair, I do think that the plan is there that would allow an individual to come in and make a living if they chose a career path at Alvin's Glen Detention Center.
One final question, Chairman Pugh. And you also mentioned the satisfactory food service grade we received from DHEC. How recent was that grade provided? And I asked that question, Mr. Brown, only because the last time I heard about a grade from DHEC, it had been reported in the media. And I think, that grade had been given several months prior. But the way it got reported, it was almost as if it was a recent occurrence. And so I think, at least for me, it's important to know just, how recent, the most recent, if you will, grade was given by DHEC. And I hope that the media certainly reports the satisfactory grade as well.
By the time we received that information through the media and it was posted, we had already received another grading from DHEC, and that grade was an A. So when we were before you having that conversation and about what had been reported, it had already been another inspection related to food services. So I'll ask again, Interim Director Harvey to address the timeline. I know it's been a couple of months, but I don't want to, since you asked me specifically, I don't want to misspeak on that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brown, I asked the question only because I know the media was eager to report the poor grade previously. So I hope they're equally as eager to report the satisfactory grade this time.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
More questions for Mr. Brown before Mr. Harvey? Yes, sir, Mr. Brenham.
He's going to answer the specific.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. It was February the 2nd that we received that A letter grade.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Brenham, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brown, on the wedge locking system, it looks great, looks awesome, and I really appreciate you taking this, taking the necessary efforts to shop that and find the best solution. In response to Mr. Pugh earlier, you indicated that these would be installed on, I believe it was all of our compromised units. What do you have a percentage there? What would that?
Sure, I can have the interim director give you the specific units. But any of those doors that have the ability to be stuffed with paper or the locking system maneuvered, that's what we're going to do so that we don't have future issues. We're trying to future-proof the concerns, but I'll have them address your specific question about the number of units and maybe even specifically which ones.
That and the timetable, if we have it, for installation.
Sure, absolutely. So if you'd allow me, I'll give you the timetable first. But in the documentation that I'm looking to provide to you, it will actually have the full schedule. So that way you can look at it. We'll provide it in the public packet so that anyone who's looking at it can see it. But right now, the ordering time, the lead time to get the materials is basically all right now. They're looking to do that. And they begin starting, I believe the date is August the 21st. And we'll go unit by unit after that. Oh, did it go off? I think it did. It's okay. Okay, go ahead, sir. I'll get it for you.
You good. And Mr. Branham, just to give you the exact number, is 448 doors. So basically, that's like 90% of your facility. And just to give more clarity on how significant this project that we're doing, and I think Chairman Mr. Pugh, he actually alluded to it a little bit, was that most detention centers that take on this type of product, they use their segregation unit to put this type of product in there. Y'all, we doing something significant and going above and beyond. We're doing 90% of our whole facility, that's awesome. Facilities don't see stuff like this. And so now we're going to move from, and I think I alluded to this the last time I sat in front of, or came in front of this body, was that we're moving from isolation where we segregate people in one unit to what they call room confinement. That is totally different. If we need to modify somebody's movement, we can actually modify their movement in their exact room instead of taking them to a unit where we're segregating them. And that was something that I alluded to. I think it was on November 17th when I came before this body to say why we shut down SHU. We all know that we had issues in that unit, and that unit is no longer. And so with this product right here, it's going to help us go along with changing the culture and helping our vision out.
Thank you so much.
Recognize Ms. McBride.
Mr. Brown, I know how difficult it is trying to get people to work in detention facilities because I've worked in a secure facility before, and it's like you're incarcerated or locked up. I can sympathize with that issue. I was wondering, in addition to hiring other detention workers, what are the efforts underway for social workers or counselors? Is that in process also?
That is through actually our medical mental health services provider, Advanced Correctional Healthcare. So they actually have a component of their work where they do that. In terms of social workers for the county themselves, we don't have social workers in the detention facility. But again, that component in terms of mental wellness, the mental welfare of detainees, the medical provider does actually have a component in which they do that, which we weren't having that before. and we have that now.
Okay, so I use the terminology social worker,
Sure.
but social services in terms of mental health professionals or counselors.
Yes, ma'am. And I think later on in this presentation, Interim Director Harvey will show you some of those social services that are being implemented and brought back into the facility.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? On to the next.
Sure. And one thing, Mr. Pugh, if you give me just a small bit of latitude, we receive conversations or calls or concerns regarding a recent reported incident that individuals thought were Richland County. It was not. You may have seen a news report that had Richland County kind of big and bold, but it wasn't actually about Richland County. If you read it, it said Richland County area, which I'm not sure why it said Richland County area, but it did. And it alluded to an unfortunate incident where someone unfortunately passed. But we received calls and concerns about that because they were thinking Richland County wasn't reporting something and we were trying to hide something. We are not. That report was not about Richland County. If you read it again, I know the big bold said Richland County and the small thing said the state's facility, but I want to clarify for you as a detention center ad hoc committee, that was not Richland County Detention Center that was referenced in that news report. So just to provide any clarity for anyone who had concerns about that and not being notified is because we didn't have anything to notify you of because it was not Richland County's detention center. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay, super excited to be back in front of you all. Staffing. I think, Mr. Walker, you asked about the staffing. I'm trying to, I know we was hopping around when Mr. Brown was up here and y'all had a lot of questions, so I was trying to digest all of them and see if I can allude to or give you more credence to anything. But I first want to say this. I think we really do need to give Mr. Brown his roses in leading this detention center. And I'm not just saying that because he's my boss. I'm saying it because the county administrator involvement, our county administrator involvement with a department of the detention center is unbelievable. His hands are really involved in this facility and this department. And I really want to thank him for that, because coming over from the state level to the detention center with the magnitude of the concerns and issues that we have at the detention center, it would not be possible. We would not be possible today if we didn't have a county administrator that was actually at the forefront and pushing a lot of these initiatives. So I really want to open up and just give him his roses today and tell him thank him for what he's done so far and thank him for the continued support and services that we're going to get from him. Staffing. So let's talk about staffing. As you can see, the staffing in 2022 was horrible. There's no way around it. The numbers speak for themselves. Literally, we had 65 in May, and that's talking about detention workers. And as you can see, as the months go on, it looks like it got better. And in 2023, when we started the salary initiative, actually the numbers did increase. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the, whereas under the interim director, the numbers are definitely better. We still have 105 vacancies. One of the questions was, what is the reason, or how can we increase the staffing? And Mr. Brown, he touched on that. But I think one of the things, and y'all have heard me say this plenty of times, I'm gonna continue to say, is changing the culture. We have to change the culture of what a detention center looks like in order to produce a new breed of staff for this profession. And one of those things is making sure that the facility is safe. Majority of the detention centers that I had accompanied with these past 2 days last week, that was one of the things that they talked about. How can I improve the safety of my facility so I can bring staff in? And so all these initiatives that we're putting in play for the staff is for the detainees is to ensure safety. Once we ensure safety, the culture change, people will come work at the detention center. And so, any questions on the staffing? The infrastructure, we talked about the infrastructure just a little bit. Mr. Brown talked about that. County Council has approved with the county administrator 2 areas of the jail to receive upgrades to ensure staff and detainees. The kitchen was the first infrastructure if y'all can remember that we talked about renovating. And so we're going to go into what that looks like. Also, after that, we was talking about renovating some units and some dorms. Unit Yankee was one of those. And most recently, the new door locking system. We talked about that.
Mr. Harvey, 1 second.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Pugh. Mr. Harvey, just got a question to kind of go back to staffing here for a second. At one point, it was brought to my attention that the sheriff's department was considering, no longer, transporting detainees, from the facility, to, I believe it would have been Magistrates Court, I think, because that's my understanding. Usually, it's the staff from the detention center that transports detainees from the facility to circuit court, right?
Yes, sir.
And usually the sheriff's department transports from the detention center to magistrates courts, or summary courts, if you will. So could you, are you at freedom to speak on that at all, as whether or not if your staff is having to, transport detainees, to magistrates court, or is that something the sheriff's department is still doing? And if the sheriff's department is no longer doing that, what kind of impact has that had on your staff at the jail?
Yes, sir. And you're right. The sheriff's department is not transporting to magistrate court. The detention center has taken on that task, and we take it on like any other task. We rolled up our boots. We just working and with that. It has taken a toll on us with the staffing coverage. Our transportation team is 5 people, 5 amazing people that's on the road all day long transporting, whether it's to general session, whether it's to medical appointments, whether it's to magistrate court, all day long they're on the road. And we supplement that with administration doing transports. We have our captains that's on the ground that's transport. We have our lieutenants that's transporting. So until we get the staffing where it need to be, we have taken on that burden.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, when did the sheriff's department stop transporting detainees, from the facility to magistrates court?
I have to give you that exact date, but it was roughly 4 or 5 months ago. Yes, sir.
So toward the end of 2022.
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Harvey.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Let's go back to this kitchen. So I'm going to show you a Matterport. It's basically, you'll see, it basically is just going to give you an overview on how our kitchen was before we did the transformation. Okay. Little high tech. Okay, so this was our old kitchen. And as you can see, we had broken tile everywhere. We had, the painting was off tremendously. And I'm sorry, y'all, I have to navigate with the little handheld mouse, not the regular mouse. So bear with me. You see all this water that was on the ground, and a lot of that has to do with, it was, the floor was actually not leveled. Let me go back. Mr. Brown gonna help me out, y'all. It's his computer.
You should have got all the way in. So what we're simply trying to show you right now, you will have a chance to physically see this. This is the older equipment. All this stuff is gone. We had our public works team, special services come out and help us with this. I might go back out of this and just start over again. All right. So again, these are not things, and I'll let you speak here, Dr. Harvey, but these are not things that we are proud of. Obviously, we talked about needing improvements, but these things no longer exist as you see now. So again, we're We're not here trying to make excuses. We're here trying to show the steps that have been taken to address a very needed area. And these are not just needs because we think they are. You can visibly see them yourself. And so you have individuals working in here preparing food. You have individuals preparing food to be served to other individuals who will ultimately be eating that food. So again, these are just, some of those looks. And the key behind that is to show you, again, this picture doesn't do it justice, and I'll let you pick up, Mr. Harvey, but you can see now, looking on your screen to the right side, what that area looks like. We're currently waiting on the new kitchen equipment, but you can see the floor is completely different. And you can see the cleanliness of that area as compared to what was there before. And that's really what we wanted you to see, is the work that's been done and the funding that has gone to support that work, and why we have been asking you supported us with that funding. So you can see what the transformations look like. This is the change that we're talking about that we hope will lead, and we believe will lead, to a culture change. Me as the administrator, the detention center staff and their leadership, and then ultimately when folks come aboard and see the environment that they're operating in, and for those who have to be detained there, that they're detained in, the idea is that there's a level of pride. Even though it happens to be a detention facility, there's a level of pride in how we operate and where we operate and how we treat people and where we house them. So again, this is one of just the initial projects. There are more to come. But again, that's an actual view of the transformational change between the kitchen before, the kitchen now, and we expect the same thing to happen when we start dealing with the housing units. We expect there to be transformational change.
No, you're good, sir. You're good. Any questions about the kitchen? I know some of those pictures can be a little hard to digest, but we're not there no more. We're advanced now. The dormitories. We talked about this in November 17th when I was before you all about changing the toilets from porcelain to the stainless steel. That is underway as we speak. This is one of the units. Yankee unit is where the new toilets will be put in. They started the construction several weeks ago. They literally had to go in and knock all the concrete out, and because they got to reroute the plumbing. And so when the new units get in, they're just going to basically stick them in, and we'll have those units that I showed you on the previous slide. Response to SCDC. This was a concern that hit the news several months ago or several weeks ago about SCDC giving the detention center, Mr. Brown and myself, basically giving us, we needed to give a response to them. I first wanted to give you all a timeline on how all of this was brought to our attention. And so I think giving everybody a timeline would bring some credence to and bring clarity to that document that Mr. Blake Taylor sent to us. The inspection, first of all, was conducted on October 24th, 2022. As you all know, I arrived here August the 2nd, 2022. Between August and October, the team and I were in constant communication on some of the errors that we had and that was being conducted at the detention center that needed to be changed. And some of those areas that immediately needed to be changed was we knew the special housing unit, SHU. We closed SHU down November 17th, y'all. That was significant. That's never been done before. Out of closing SHU, we created 4 more other units. One of those units was our behavior management unit, our step-down unit, for our most aggressive detainees. The other unit was a medical unit. We created a medical unit. We also created a mental health unit. And we also created an older population unit. Some people say it's the geriatric unit. So out of that closing of SHU, we went forward hard to make sure that all of our detainees are in the most appropriate classification level they can be. And all of this was done in November. So within 60 to 90 days, we did a whole facility shakeup. We also started putting all of our policies under review. I'm still signing off on policies. We have 338 policies. All of those policies that we have in play have procedures involved in all of them. So literally, I have to read every policy to ensure that the procedures, A, are valid, B, they can be carried out, and C, they have the resources to be carried out. So all of that stuff is still being done as we speak. We've improved conditions of confinement for detainees. And last but not least, I'm confident that the follow-up that SCDC, once they come back, they're going to see significant changes, and they're going to approve the action plan that we're going to put in, or corrective action plan that we're going to put in play. Mr.
Harvey, I got a question for you. Let's back up for a second, and we're kind of running out of time a little bit. But as far as creating the mental health unit, I know Mr. Brown said that our healthcare providers will be also have dual roles as our mental health providers too. Do they have a specific process that they're going through to make sure that they evaluate our detainees and making sure that they're properly classified and put in the right unit? And what does that look like? And are the policies that you're working on for Alvin S. Glenn, are they going to mirror theirs, or are we going to, how are we going to do our policy when it comes to mental health?
Yeah, mental health is a big issue. Specifically, it's a huge issue in our jails. When you look at the jails around the state, I would give a raw number of, say, 70% of their population throughout these jails in the state are mentally ill. We're just fortunate enough to do what we did back in November, where we created a housing unit for them. Most jails segregate their mental health people. And we all know, and I've stated this before, any mental health illness, you exasperate that illness when you confine somebody into a unit of such. To answer your question, Mr. Pugh, we have medical providers, our licensed social workers, and our psychiatrists. They are inside those units. They are analyzing, they are doing assessments at the beginning of the admission process with a detainee to see where they're supposed to be at. And not only that, we have our security staff. I've actually created a position to where we have a security supervisor that is in that unit. So not only is the housing unit officers there, but the security is there, and the mental health personnel is there as well.
Mr. Walker.
I know we're running out of time, Mr. Chair, but just real quick, Director Harvey, and this is sort of, a similar line of questioning from Chairman Pugh, far as regarding screening. But, my question is about gangs. Have you and or your team, I guess, figured out a way to screen those detainees coming into the facility that may have gang affiliation, and also keeping them separated from one another?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And good questions. And y'all, I'm passionate about this job. I can talk about this all day. But what I will say though, the gangs they're real. We can't stop gangs. Law enforcement can't stop them on the street. We can't stop them from being in the jail. But what we can do is ensure that they don't cross paths. What we have done now is, first of all, Mr. Brown, with the salary initiative, he has allowed us to where we can hire our emergency response team. Our emergency response team are going to be dual roles. Not only are they responding to incidents, but they're also going to be they're going to have gang training to where they can actually interrogate, they can actually identify what person is in the gang, and it starts in intake. As soon as that detainee comes in intake, there's a screening that is conducted to see what type of gang they're affiliated with. Whether they say it or not, their body sometimes will tell on them. And so our ERT is attached to that emergency response team. They're attached to assessing that, and then we classify them in the most appropriate housing unit we can. What we try not to do is try to mix gangs, because we found out that mixing gangs into one unit is just not good for the gang member or for our staff.
Director Harvey, thank you, Mr.
Okay. That's it. Okay. I know we only got a few minutes, but I want to hit two highlights. We always hear about the detention center about, I hate to say it, negative stuff. In your packet, you will see some of the services that we are providing to our detainees. One of the things that we have to take in consideration is that our detainees are staying in our jails a lot longer than it used to be back in the day. When I came in this profession 18 years ago, it was a fluid. Detainees would come in, they would go out. Now all of a sudden they're staying here for years now. And so they're not getting necessarily the resources. The traditional jails are not giving them necessary resources and programs that they should get if they was getting the SCDC. Your detention center has taken on a different role now. Now we're giving our detainees a lot more programs. One of those programs that we're giving them is the GED. Our detention center is a testing site, so we can test as we see fit for those for GED. We actually have 12 candidates right now that were actually, hopefully, once they pass, I got news today, 6 of them passed. So we got 6 more to see if they're gonna pass, and we're gonna do a graduation for them. When we talk about recidivism, we always talk about recidivism from the SCDC level. But if we back up, how many times do we know a detainee coming into our jail, and do we capture that data? And I believe that if we can give them the programs and the services they are in the jail, then it will stop them from going to SCDC. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to give them all type of services. The GED is one of them. Life skills is another one. This was sponsored from our Richland County Library. Just want to say kudos to our Richland County Library for assisting us for that. We have a licensed social worker who comes in and provide life skills. We're on our 2nd cohort right now for those life skills. We had one with the males and now we're doing the females. I was in the classroom yesterday. They told me to get out because I was making too much noise. So we're excited about that. We're doing great things for our detainees to where, guess what, y'all? We're trying to get them to where they don't graduate to SCDC. And so I believe that if we can do it on the front level, on the jail level, then our recidivism rate from SCDC will decrease as well. Any questions?
Well, Mr. Harvey, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you've put in, as well as Mr. Brown and everyone that has had a hand in trying to make sure that Alvin S. Glenn is back up to par and that we're really serving the community in the capacity that we should be serving them in. And so I just want to say thank you, because I had an opportunity to visit, and I can tell you, just looking at the pictures in the past and looking at where we are now, we are making some headway, and that's exactly where we want to be as a county. So thank you. I appreciate it, sir. All right. Okay. With that being said, we move on to item number 6, which is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Ms. Carrillo, can you call for the vote, please, ma'am?
Hugh,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. We are adjourned.